So working with this species for so long, there's actually not that many biologists that know the species, so I'm trying to really expand that knowledge so that we can further protect this animal from its decline. So what I'll talk about today is the natural history of the Southwestern Pond Turtle. Some of the study sites that I'll talk about aren't actually in Escondido Creek, but I will finish off with the Escondido Creek work that we did last year. We helped the Conservancy hike through the creek, and we trapped some turtles, and this is all great. So I think building the natural history, then it's like, okay, what can we do here? You know, kind of thing. How do we get involved with saving the species? So pretty much they're declining throughout the range. The Western Pond Turtle, it used to be just the Western Pond Turtle going from Canada all the way to Baja. Through genetic studies, USGS, a lot of work, partnership with UCLA, they found that the genetic diversity and the divergence was great enough to call Southern California population an actual species, which is the Southwestern Pond Turtle. They've done further analysis showing that they're at 75% chance of going extinct in 2100 due to drought and invasive species, fires. So, I'm all about science literacy, so getting that information so that we can get that information so we have places like this that we can have a very robust population just management and make a few adjustments. So, like most species that are going extinct in the world, habitat loss is #1. So the good news is about you guys. You guys have been you guys are protecting, growing habitat, restoring habitat, so that's a great start. The invasive species, I mean, there's so many invasive species here that Donna has 2 sitting here in the bin right now. Yeah. It's exploding here. So there's a lot of fish in this creek. There's catfish, there's bass, there's sliders, there's crayfish, all sorts of stuff. So the invasive species go from frog, bullfrog, mesopredator release. So when you actually we got rid of the grizzly bear, we got rid of the wolf, we got rid of the mountain lion, you get these animals here, mesopredator, raccoons is a mesopredator. So there's nothing regulating them, so they explode in larger numbers. So the possum, this is great. You got Interpretive center here. It's released here. So then that creates an increased pressure on the pond turtle. So habitat loss, invasive species, it's like it's shrinking, creating more and more pressure on them. They eat a lot of nests, the eggs, all very important. Fires is a huge issue these days, and that relates to climate change just because of the frequency level, but it's also because of urban development and whatnot. What happens with fires is they can burn, but if they're in the water, what happens is these steep slopes, all that can silt in the heavy rain, it buries it in the west fork of the San Elijo River. That actually did happen, and we were able to level. Hopefully there's more that make it, but anyway. I think the objective is really for conservation. I'll get into some photos, I promise. Some stuff here is to determine, if they're valuable, if they're viable or declining. And that's what kind of the studies that I've done, which hopefully we can do, or the Conservancy can do here to make sure that we finally get to a picture of Western Pond Turtle. So actinides, and Palida. What's that? Yeah, so when you see something chewed on like that, that's definitely a female. That's, she's definitely got some battle scars there. Many females are just really scratched up from skunks, and they're just grabbing them and trying to chew on them. So they make all the efforts there to nest. So males, they don't really have to leave the water unless it dries out or whatever. Even then, they kind of wedge in the rocks and whatnot. The females really expose themselves. So to identify this species, it's kind of a dark shell, very dark shell, and a reticulation or marbling, you could say, is on their face. And they have a yellow eye, that yellow golden eye. You don't really, a red-eared slider has a green eye. You guys can really take a look if you like. And they don't have the striping that red-eared sliders would have. So they're much smaller when they're full grown than a regular slider. It's going to be the main turtle, aquatic turtle that you're going to compare it to around here. And the head is much smaller too. So these turtles they're pretty docile. They don't bite, except when I explain that, well, someone bites them. Usually they actually don't bite. It's very, very rare. So this is just general, like, medium olive colored carapace. Their plastron or belly is yellow. They're about 5 to 6 inches. They weigh about a pound. Actinides means ray turtle. It used to be Mamarata, which means marble. Palida, which is the species is referring to the pale throat. Can live up to 40 plus years. I have a colleague who's been doing this longer than I have. He's a retired professor from Cal State Bakersfield. He's got turtles that are 70 years old. So they live a long time. So the habitats, they love anything kind of with water. Not perennial, but ephemeral. But they need about probably 4 months, I believe, is the least amount of water they can survive. They're just dormant the rest of the year. So marshes, estuaries, creeks, they can sewage treatment plants, water districts they can exist in. But they also need refugia, nesting habitat, which are kind of the banks. This parking lot would have been it, or the slopes, all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to knock the parking lot, by the way. I'm just saying, like, we're up above the creek. So I'm not trying to out, So as a study site, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is an example. There's 600 turtles in a concentrated area of 200 acres or so. So UCI, the San Joaquin Marsh, it's a 208-acre preserve, right, adjacent to UC Irvine. So this is in Orange County. UC Irvine is down here. Newport Back Bay is over here for anybody that knows that geography. And so this is kind of right next to the coastal area here. This is the water district. And so this was the duck club that was acquired in the 60s by the UC Regents. So the UC reserve system, those reserves all over the state that are for research and education. Really fantastic places to go and visit, volunteer, all that, because they're not open to the public. So you don't really want that. The invasives aren't as much as there. You don't have a bunch of crowds or anything like that. So it's nice. So it's wet, it's ephemeral, so I mean it's wet from January to June, and then July to December it's dry. So for an aquatic turtle, that's the question in Southern California they know is like, where do these turtles go? What do they do? So when I was an undergraduate, they knew that there were turtles there, like just in general. So I built these floats, and the only reason it was a research project, and the only reason I was selected to do this research project, because I know how to use a power drill. My dad's an electrician, I used to do all sorts of stuff like that. So industrial arts, my dad really forced on me. So then I'm like, yeah, I can use that drill, sure. And I knew how to tie knots. So but it worked. So we went out there, and USGS, who the same team actually that comes here, they were much younger then. They were trying to survey Orange County for pond turtles. They had no idea where any were, but I knew because they were using my floats, So that's how I got involved with this. I was able to go and tell them where this was, and then I knew how to use a drill. So they were. This is just an example. This is a male at Point Magoo of how cryptic these animals can be. They're extremely shy. They're not easy to see if you're hiking around. They see you, hear you very quickly. Usually what you do is you see you thought you heard something jump in the water, you see ripples. It's kind of like what you get to see with a pond turtle most of the time. But another reason, this is at Point Magoo, of how cryptic, they just go in the mud and disappear. So they could be all right there, and you have no idea that they're designed to hide, I guess, from us. I'm sure Native Americans ate them, I don't know. So the way we trap them, the way we sample them is through trapping. This is a hoop net funnel trap, and this is my equipment for transmitters. So I was trying to find nests, and where they go when the water dries. That was one of the questions. The GPS, this is the transmitters, this is how I measure the turtle with scales, this is a caliper for carapace length. So I bait this with mackerel. I just go to a market, a fish market. 99 Ranch is the one of choice that I go to. Get Norwegian Saba, which is just mackerel, marketed. And cut in half and just stick it in there, tie it on a noose, and they love it. A nice oily, scented fish. So measured, 230. I marked in that in a 5-year time period, 236 turtles. I was able to document estivation sites and nest sites, and we'll go through all of that. So here's what we caught in Irvine. These are all African clod frog and catfish. So we didn't find any clod frogs here, but there's definitely catfish. And these are all pond turtles. So no red-eared sliders there. It's amazing. There's no people to put sliders in. Right. Like it's very rare that I catch a slider there actually that have to travel kind of far. They do happen, it's very rare. Donna actually got a chance to try. Yeah. So there's me with no gray hair, so that was a long time ago. Oh, there's a couple right there. That's my brown hair, So that's me weighing them, so we process them, collect that data, measure them, the carapace length. And why that's important is, and this is depth of shell, and and you guys can ask questions, by the way, anytime you want. I'm happy to engage that way. So he's talking at you. So, and this kind of helps me get the size demographics to know, getting the juvenile size cohorts. I'll show you a graph of that. And that helps me kind of determine, the distribution of the population. So I would mark them individually using a triangular file and a notching system. So there's this, it seems relatively complex when I first saw it. It's really just the whole place numbers here, so like thousands place, there's 100th place, the ones place, 10th place. So I can basically make a code, essentially. I mark it between 1 and 4 notches, essentially. So if I start with 100, the next one's 101, 102, 103, 120, 150, 190, and then go to 200. Kind of thing. Or I can pick this one and then 3201, 32. So that's kind of like, that's how. This was based on like a 1930 publication on turtles that I can't remember the author. It's irrelevant, but anyway, somebody else did it, so I did that. So this is attaching a transmitter onto these tubes. This is figure out where they're going. So I attached it with nail acrylic. So I got transmitters, radio, VHF transmitters, and just nail acrylic, and I painted it with some black electrical liquid paint kind of thing, and that was it. And then they went. We also would X-ray females, so these are eggs here. And I just kind of stuff them in the whole body cavity there. It sounds uncomfortable to me. But that's what they do. They have about 5 to 6 eggs per clutch. They nest 1 to 2 times a year. So this is the receiver here. Spence, he owned a communications company. He donated all this. So this was all my master species. And I was extremely lucky to have that. He donated probably, for the reds, $30,000, So they do walk. I did let them go, and then the plan was to follow them. So that's me just showing that and we got to follow them. What do we find? Now I'll show you a map of nests and whatnot. But I did a population estimate here of this is you don't have to look at any of this. It's just a slide to show. That number there, 308 turtles is what we estimated using market capture over multiple years. So you have to catch them, and then let them go, mark them, and then if you don't catch them again, you're like, it kind of does like a maximum likelihood if it survived or died. Then in the 4th year you catch them, okay, it survived. So it kind of increases, gives it, so it pops open an estimate there. I didn't even make this statistical lesson. I don't want you guys to fall asleep, good thing you chew gum, that keeps you awake. So just look at the colors here, kind of look at the numbers. What I like to use with this graphic is it shows me the size differences. So the blues are the young ones, the juveniles. So that's 110 millimeters or less, so smaller. And these are the males, these are the females. So what is important about this graph in general is that we have a lot of juveniles in here recruiting into a healthy adult population. There are other populations where you'll have turtles up here and nothing here. So
Where's this sample from?
What's that?
Where's the sample from?
This is from the UCI study.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what would that mean if I don't have anything right here, but I have them right here? Right, no recruitment. Something's either the nesting habitat is gone and they're just releasing their eggs in the water. They don't have access to it. The hatchlings aren't surviving the nest because something's eating them, or the hatchlings then come into the water and something's eating them. So, a lot of something's eating them, yeah. Yeah, so, and there's a lot of populations happening like that. So, why this is important in general is, oh, I see pond turtles, they're here. It's like, are they? Like, they live 70 years, you know? So are they going like this, you know, and they're, you know, each one dies, every female dies, it decimates the population stability. So anyway, I wanted to show you all this to show you what a healthy population looks like. So this is just the carapace length, it's just kind of supporting the information that there is recruitment coming in, kind of thing. I thought if I just had that sample in here, or you're interested in data number, just got what, it's quite lower. So data is relatively stable. This is to show recaptures that the red, so the new captures are blue and the red is recapture, so I caught them again. So every year is getting more and more red, which means I'm catching everybody, essentially. And then there's some blue ones because there's new ones coming into the population. So this is just reinforcement that, you know, I've caught everything and there's still animals coming in, so that's kind of a closed population. If I kept getting more and more and more, it means that I haven't sampled the whole population. Now, a creek system like this, it's a big, big system, you know? So I'd have to like understand, it's probably in something this size, subpopulations that are you know, they use a certain reach, and then once in a while, somebody goes on a big walkabout and maybe goes to another population. So this is just something that says that it's like, this is also just about the number, like these are just the numbers captured. So 20 adults, 34 female, or I'm sorry, 20, basically 20, I'm tongue-tying myself here. Females and males, so, you know, these are just the numbers of what we caught total. So juveniles, so just showing like these are really good numbers that I'm catching. And when I'm catching a juvenile, they're not like a hatchling. I'm catching them like about this big. My traps, I can only catch like 50 millimeters or something. They're born at 25 millimeters. That's like a quarter. I can't catch a quarter. So there's probably a hatchling. This is probably like, you know, 1,000 or something, and then like most of them get eaten by invasives and natural predators. You know, like
you can't tell the sex of the juvenile.
Cannot.
Okay.
I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can.
You could with like blood sampling,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah. So turtles are interesting. All turtles do temperature dependent sex determination. Some of you guys may have heard of that. But they don't. So mammals, it's like X or Y, male or female. Right out of the gate, right at fertilization. For a turtle, they lay the eggs. It's not determined until the temperature. That there's a moment in the embryonic cycle that it's either male or female. So, yeah, some other things do it too. So, even they can't.
Question back here, Barry?
Yeah.
Does that mean if you had one clutch in one area, then most likely be all the same sex?
Not necessarily, because if they're in the nest chamber, you know, it's a difference of 1 degree Celsius. So maybe the top is warmer and the top is colder. I don't know. It just would depend. Yeah.
Is it like sea turtles where they dig a little hole in the sand?
Yeah. So basically they use their hind legs, just kind of dig like this, and just kind of dig back and lay their eggs. then they bury it, and they release water onto it to compact it. So actually, if you guys are walking around in the spring, April, May, June, July, now even, this is the tail end of nesting season, but it could happen. You see a female turtle, and it's got mud on its back, and it just nests. Slider or pond turtle, actually. You know, if it's like, why is it all dirty just on the back and muddy? Because it just did that release. Any questions on that or anything else so far? What about the stats? Yeah, this is getting this little data. This one has a little bit of data. Just this doesn't matter. This one is just showing the different ponds. Okay, so nesting. So this is good because it relates to the question. So this is actually a pond turtle. She just finished nesting. This was at 4 in the morning. You know, I didn't have anything to do. I guess I have to find nests. A lot of mosquitoes at that time of morning. I don't know if you guys knew that. I remember getting zapped pretty hard. So the way they nest here, is they come out, from what I've gotten from my transmitter data, is they come out around 3 p.m. to this time until sunset. Once the sun goes down, they stop moving wherever they're at, terrestrially, like above the water. So they'll try to nest. Some, if they nest successfully, they'll come back. They could come back in the same day. But a lot of them spend the night nesting, and then they come back the next morning around 7, 8, 9, sunrise or whatever. So my guess is the reason why they're coming out that late is because I mean, it's hot, but it's like the sun's not like right above them anymore, so it's starting to like cool down a little bit. 3 o'clock's still pretty warm, but they would move. It was in the spring though, April, so it's good weather. And they'll also dig false nests, which are extremely frustrating if you're trying to find nests. Right? You know, they don't take sick days, they don't take holidays, Sundays, birthdays, anything. So if I had to find nests, I had to go out there every single solitary day. So when you think one's coming and dig a false nest, it just kind of breaks your heart a little bit. But that's just their life.
The transmitter doesn't interfere with them nesting?
No. The one thought is if it would interfere with like mating. If they were laying eggs year after year with them. And I also removed them. So you could just use a putty knife and just pop it off, and there was no damage to their shell. So I found, these are all the nests I found. I found 20 nests. I think it's the largest data set of nest locations of a population for the species ever, kind of thing. Maybe now it's better, I don't know. For a while, at least I think there was a publication that said this was the most. But anyway, it's because I was very single at the time. I didn't have any accountability. But also, this is the farthest distance nest documented at 457 meters, about a quarter mile, which has led to even U.S. Fish and Wildlife posting that as like a buffer for protection, which frustrates people that have to work in that area, and you tell them you can't work within 500 meters, you know. So they can nest about a quarter mile, and that's from one population. Who knows? Most of them, though, is a few 200 by 175 meters. So that's still a big distance. Imagine being this tall, or I'm sorry, this big, and then you're crawling on your belly, pregnant, it's hot, and animals after you and whatnot, through grass and everything. It's like impressive to do. I can't do that at my, go crawl a quarter mile.
How far from the water is the nest, typically?
So here's actually a map of them. So the ponds are here kind of in this blue. And so on this edge here, that distance, the mean was 175 meters from edge of water. But they could be very close. So there were ones that were like 50 meters, 20 meters, and then 457, it kind of moves to average over. So it could be, kind of right above the bank. but it's typically not in the actual like bed bank of the channel. It's usually out of the creek water. But they'll do it road banks, levee banks. Coastal sage scrub has a lot of these. From this study, so here's a road bank. That was that's a levee bank here, and then this is just restored coastal sage scrub. This is all restored coastal sage scrub. These are weedy areas. I didn't find any when I compared with vegetation type. They didn't care what the vegetation was above ground. I did notice observationally that it had to be kind of open, so the sun incubates their eggs. So they lay those eggs, they're gone, right? They don't know their kids. They're out of there. So, but they need the sun to incubate those eggs. And that's about 100 days. We would just say a number. So if they are nesting in April, roughly late August, September, they hatch. When they hatch, they don't emerge. They just sit there in the nest because the water dried out, right? Southern California, August, that is not the time for water, right? They need to eat underwater. Turtles have, aquatic turtles, they're not like your tortoises. They actually have to be underwater to eat. And tortoises, they got a lot of big giant tongue, they just eat whatever. These turtles, everything they kind of use like water, that water kind of suction method to eat. So when it's dry, they're not eating at all for 6 months, 8 months. What I also found interesting about these turtles is they're nesting in clusters. And this past year I was at the Wildlife Society, I gave a talk, and actually did an analysis that they are choosing to nest in these clusters non-randomly. Meaning, like, these nest sites are much more important than just, like, oh, they'll just nest up there. It's like they are selecting these sites. Maybe you come, I don't have the answer why. Probably would be my guess is that's where they came from, they were born. They know that about sea turtles. And I asked the biologist that discovered that a long time ago, happened to work at UC Irvine, and asked him, could I do that? He said no, because they're too related. So I thought I was going to discover something. Like, no, you're doing it. Okay, we're too related. So anyway, why is that important to apply to something like this? Is if you're going to build, if you were going to build another interpretive center, this is all for good. But what if this is a pond turtle nesting site? We've wiped out all these, and they nest here for over 50 years. They're nesting in this one spot. So that's why it's important. It's important to know that so that it can be avoided, protected, restored. Now, pond turtles are very plastic, so I don't think that's the end game for them. Like, oh, if you ruined it, they're gone forever, kind of thing. But it's like, well, it just to be aware that they're going there for a reason. I'm just trying to see if this matters for this. So this is a depredated nest. So you can see it looks like the vacuum, like you jammed a turtle back in there, right? And the reason why I know it's depredated is the eggshells are outside of the nest. So if they're outside of the nest, that means they're something dug them up. And in this case, it was a ground squirrel. So if turtles were to just hatch, the eggs would have been in here and then just in the nest. And it would have been, they just kind of pop out, and again, they're like quarters, right? It wouldn't have been like this open. So,
I've got a question. So that looks like a clay or sandy type of soil.
Yeah.
Is that what they usually seek out?
I don't know. Their range has all sorts of different soil types. There's a population that's clay. I don't think so, because the center was a plateau, which is just that way, I think. It's all clay, like heavy clay. And I don't know where they nest, but there's no sandy stuff there. There are sandy rivers that also have very sandy stuff. So I think it just varies. But they probably are looking, it's easier to dig in more what's called friable soil than diggable. So, but yeah, it is. And this is loosened up from her. And they're fairly strong. I mean, if you hold these turtles, they really can push hard on your hand. It's impressive how strong they are. So there's that corner I kept on. This one still has the egg tooth through. They have a little long tail there, and they kind of, in the shell, they're kind of folded like a taco, you know? And the shell is hard, so this is one of the only turtle species that has a hard shell. I don't know why. Most turtles have leathery, kind of pliable shells. Your shells like that, yeah. These are actually hard, like a chicken, maybe even harder. So maybe it's for desiccation, protecting desiccation. So, yeah.
I saw a writer's letter in a grass nest. And so would that be a false nest, or are they just different?
A grass, what do you mean by a grass?
Well, like tall grass, and then they dug into the grass to lay their eggs?
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah.
They'll definitely do that. The way you would know if it was a false, if it wasn't a false nest, is the color. So they'll leave a false nest open. It'll just like big, and it won't be that deep. So maybe that's a soil selection thing. Maybe it's like, oh, this is too hard, and then or they get tired, or I don't know. You can spook them too. They're very timid animals. So another important behavior for pond turtles is estivation. So estivation refers to summer dormancy. So it doesn't get cold enough in California for the most unless it snows in like the high Sierras mountains to deal with hibernation. So these turtles actually don't hibernate; they overwinter, they doesn't freeze. And in the summer, they go into a dormancy called estivation to avoid drought, desiccation. So this creek is actually more perennial now, right? So these turtles don't have to, but some of them probably still do it. Once it gets too hot or the water gets too hot, they'll leave and just go dormant. So when you're environmental conformer metabolically, so I guess I try not to say cold-blooded these days, it's cold-blooded, environmental conformer to your body temperature, it doesn't take calories like it does for us. We eat, some of us eat 5 times a day. I don't know. We're 3 times a day, right? 3 times a day, or unless you're intermittent fasting, 1 or 2, whatever. But we need to eat a lot just to maintain body weight, and a lot of it's for heat. Heat allows us to move around, and this is how our bodies, our adaptation. For them, they can shut it down to equivalent to like a pilot light on like a stove, essentially, metabolically speaking, where their heart just good, kind of thing. They're just next. I mean, they eventually can starve, but so so they find places that are cooler and moist, probably for temperature stabilization, and to avoid the heat. That could be in this marsh system. It's underneath reeds and in the mud and stuff like that. Willow duff. In a creek system like this, a lot of it's in between boulders. Our creeks make these undercuts where the trees hold the bank, but then it creates a lot of these undercuts in the creek, and they go deep into those holes there. So you can actually trap, like how I showed you, or the funnel net traps, or you can noodle, which is sticking your arm. I don't know how brave you are. I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, you catch turtles that way.
But this isn't underwater.
No, this is, right.
They don't do it.
No. But if it's so this is summer, so they definitely can. In the winter, the colder the water, the slower their metabolism, so they can be on there a lot longer. There's been studies that how fast they go up and down the water. So here's a picture of what it looks like, in the spring, April, May, something like that. And this is what it looks like right now. Just like bone dry. So those turtles got to go somewhere. And that was the main question. I thought was the main question. Where does this all go? Because we caught like 53 turtles that year, something like that. And then there was an adjacent pond that still had water that was managed for classes, for wetland classes and whatnot. And we went over there. It was not very far, like, maybe about 100, 200 feet. And we caught 3 turtles in that pond. Where did these 50 turtles go? And that estivation is part of it. Now, those transmitters just showed me that all they did was kind of, where the ponds are right here, they just kind of went to the closest pond edge and then just sat there. They sat and sat and sat and sat.
And do they only eat vegetation or are they omnivores?
They're actually generalists, so so I would say they're fairly carnivorous, scavenger-like. So they eat, obviously they eat mackerel, but they eat aquatic invertebrates, they eat fish, frog eggs, they eat crayfish actually, they eat poop. They're just a scavenger. Yeah. Now the females, I know the females can eat cattail tubers. So they will eat some vegetation, but they mostly eat carnivorous. So the summary of this is just showing that we've got 380 turtles, the sex ratio is 1:1, juvenile ratio 1:1, which is great, 20 nest sites, and 9 turtles estimated. But what's important that I'm not going to tell you about is this site, the water comes from the water district, which I pointed to, right? The Rhine Ridge Water District. So it's really dependent on, society these days, everything's been engineered. And we had to, they got into some water fight, not like a guns, but like not giving you water kind of thing. And they did it for a few years. So this was 08 to 2012, this study. They got in some fight in the middle of the 2000 teens or whatever, 15, 16. Then I came back and there were dead turtles and whatnot. The manager was really stressed about it. And I went back and I sampled and everything around 2019, 2020. And they're there, lots of them were there. We actually sampled, there were even more there than when I did this study. However, the sex ratio changed. It was 1:1. Females were negatively impacted at a higher rate because of this drought condition, essentially, than males. So it went to like 1.5 males to 1 female, which is unfortunate because then your population recruitment rate is now flat. Flat. Female turtles are adult breeding, egg-laying female turtles are critical to a population of pond turtles because the survivorship of a hatchling is very low. Maybe out of 10 eggs, like, I don't know, maybe 1 survives, maybe 5 survive, I don't know, but like on average, their biology, their role in the ecosystem is the kids don't survive very often.
How long until they can start breeding, laying eggs?
So they start breeding around 7 or 8 years. So it takes a while. Could be a little earlier. It also depends on their growth rate, how healthy they are. They start showing those sexual dimorphic characteristics, meaning the characteristics of being a male or a female, essentially, around a certain size, which is about 110 millimeters to 120 millimeters. I have to use metric because that's the only way I measured them. So deal with it. Something like that. Yeah. Something like that, right. But that doesn't mean they're like ready to go. I mean, humans start showing that stuff like at 10, 11. It doesn't mean they're ready to, raise a family, right? So it takes time. And so, a drought like that is going to impact them a lot. So that's something that I wanted to show. This was another thing that I wanted to show that, like, these are the actual studies that I was able to grab, showing like, okay, I estimated 308, Camp Pendleton, USG has 119 turtles, Chino Hill State Park, 51, 146, okay, the pictures is like, they are all, this is a natural pond on Pendleton, but all the rest, it doesn't have any impact. This one requires pumping, this one's burned, this one is burned twice. This number, we saved 11. I don't know if there's any more than 11. We took them to the zoo and they took them back in. It was completely silted, gone, like their habitat. So it took a big hit. So the take-home message of this is that, like, there are a lot of threats happening to them, and these fires, like, the frequency of them is too fast. Chaparral only needs it once every 50 years as their cycle, It's happening. Every cent in a win, I'm just going to get a little nervous. You know? So this is the healthy population I showed you. This is UCI, and this is what I wanted. This is Point Magoo in Ventura County. That is gone. There are no young ones here, you know, and a bunch of old adults. And characteristically, an adult, a really old adult, their shell starts getting really smooth because their shells are really worn. It's just, I don't know, there's kind of a look after I've seen so many turtles that I know these are older turtles. And so these aren't breeding, well, they are breeding because they are nesting, but there's no recruitment. So over time, this is, you know, each dot blinks out, and if it's a female, it's even worse off. So it's like, what's the mechanism breaking this cycle? I don't know. But it's really studying, you need to study with the hatchling habitat. So the hatchling habitat, to explain, hatchlings only live in, like, within 1 meter from the shore of a pond or a creek or lake, and within 1 meter depth of water. They're mainly hiding in cattails and bulrush, rocks, logs, stuff like that. So they're not really out there swimming like the adults are. Never see hatchlings. I never see hatchlings. It's very rare. Usually when they're like, something's draining and then they're the last thing there. So we need to do important things for, you know, keep studying these populations, so what's going on, assess if they're healthy or not, if they aren't, what can we do? Because the assumption is a lot of these aquatic systems are really impacted and degraded, and with the invasive species, it's even worse. So conducting studies, allowing females to nesting sites, managing, you know, the habitat for turtles around. I have more slides. That's why I'm trying. This is at the end. The vibe is the end. I'm trying to go fast. So this is kind of an issue that you see when you're managing an area like this, where they're mowing this pond here. This is a UCI. They're just mowing it, you know. And I'm showing you the turtles are the reeds, right, from the. So they mow, and then it's like, why are they mowing? And it's like, well, you know, they want this to flood again, and this becomes shallow habitat for birds. It's great, especially if you love birds, right? But now this kind of creates an impact, you know, and you know, this turtle's alive. That's blunt force trauma from a mower blade, and you know, how many don't make it from that, from something like that? So turtles are pretty tough though. Doesn't mean you should mow, but it's just, you know, if you're gonna mow, raise the blade a little bit, you know, like instead of right to the ground, like keep it that high, you know, the turtles will just tilt, they're not that thick, so just keep it that high, and they'll move on, because then you mess them up. So, you know, we started like looking for these turtles during construction projects and when they remove habitat, we were able to get them, find rake and everything, we were able to actually find them and relocate in areas. So I don't know why that's blank, I don't know why that's blank, I'm panicking. So I think this was actually supposed to be, yeah. Oh, all the Escondido Creek slides, of course. This is supposed to be a map of what we did here, and that's Calvin with the catfish. And next steps, thank you. Okay, that's weird. Very cool. Okay, we go home. No. So what we did here, I don't know, maybe it'll load, I don't know. Let's put on the turtle. There we go. At least make things a little bit better.
So in Escondido Creek, they don't travel, do they stay relatively close to where they live?
We don't know, actually. So in a lot of creek systems, the male will go about 2 kilometers. So they'll be using a lot of the creek. Females stick pretty close to the areas.
And that's not because the water's rushing through and just pushing downstream?
So if the water's rushing, so that's another reason to get out of the creek in the winter, is they come out of the creek. I didn't talk about that because that was a marsh system. So in a system like this, so last August we came here and we hiked, my team, I came like 2 days, I was very sick at the time. But anyway, we were there and we went through all the assessing the habitat, and the habitat looks really good for the most part. And found new populations, we're finding more and more, which is great, which is a good sign that the population here is fairly robust. I would guess it is, just because it looks so great. So in the winter, their behavior in a stream system is to get out. So they get out, they might, that's why I mean in the summer, by August, September, they might get out and hide in the rocks and all that. So if it's rushing through and they're in those undercuts, that water flow is not really as great, that pressure. So that might be one of the strategies. However, they do get found on the beaches sometimes. I know in Camp Pendleton, they'll sometimes find them on the beaches, walking down the Santa Margarita River. So that is something that they have to deal with. But in the street system, it's probably there's spots that are like big pool systems that they're at, and then when there's a lot of riffling, that's their transient area, and they go to each pool. And we sampled and we mapped a lot of the pools, and we did catch I forget how many we caught. Yeah, I don't have the number. It was like caught 4.
4 pond turtles, over 60 pools, 27 regular sliders, a lot of catfish.
Yeah. Now granted, that was in August, which a lot of them could have already left. So the better time, but USGS, how many did you guys catch?
This week, in a much smaller section, 1 mile stretch versus what we did. And they're going to continue for the next 2 weeks at least, so hopefully we'll...
And this is a better time, this time of year is a little bit better. And if it were June and May, those are even better. So this is the right time of year to sample, to know what's going on. And so this population's, in terms of the Conservancy and the community knowing what's supposed to know what's going on, it's unknown. The good news is they are here. And there's a very good opportunity, an extremely robust population, where this is one of the largest in San Diego County, essentially. Very few populations in San Diego County to begin with. So Escondido Creek is a watershed well known as, in terms of the dozens of pond turtle people, it's well known that there are pond turtles.
The greater pond turtle.
Yeah, exactly. So we did catch a lot of catfish, and we did see a lot of bass. There were a lot of crayfish. So I know there's another component of steelhead, right? That this is a steelhead creek. So steelhead and pond turtles live together just fine. So that's not a problem between those two. But it's just something that I think right now you guys have been doing a lot of habitat acquisition, amazing stuff. That's the good work. And managing the creek, the actual wildlife. Secondary, so weeding for habitat restoration, you got to weed also for the wildlife, like removing the sliders.
Are they able to adapt to estuary conditions?
So they do live in estuaries, they do.
Oh,
But there needs to be a freshwater component.
Yeah.
So Siswin Slough, that Point Magoo, a couple of those photos, that is the seawater level of salt, so 33, that's what's down 36. And up north, Siswin Slough is tidal, so they can handle it. They probably prefer fresh, but they can handle it.
But if they get washed down to
Yes.
San Elijo Lagoon, they might.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, So they're reptile, they have waterproof skin, so they can handle it. Just like we have waterproof skin, we can handle it for a while, but eventually we can't drink salt water, they'll throw it up too. If you've ever tried to drink salt water. So this got all messed up at the end, right, at the most important part. But I'm going to blame it starting late, not my fault. Time to review it. No, I did. I don't know why. It worked right before I put it on again, so this is close. So are there any questions you have about the species or about what can happen? One of the slides is next steps here that I wanted to talk about. And the next steps being, well, what do you do? Yeah.
So I have a question. Occasionally along the creek, I will see turtles, and I know they're not these turtles. So are these so much shyer than normal turtles? And so we see some turtles, but we never see these?
Yeah, these are very shy. They're a very shy turtle, and actually they do not like hooded sliders.
They don't like what?
They don't like the hooded sliders. They avoid actually those turtles.
So if you knew where they were, would you, being an expert, be able to sort of sneak up and actually get a photograph of them, or is that just impossible?
Yeah, it's just like with wildlife photography in general, just to be very patient.
But I'm just wondering whether an expert could see them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, all right.
I mean,
Okay,
that's not underwater.
Show me somewhere.
Yeah. Well, you know, we could, even in a place like this, where we know where the populations are, we could even set up a basking spot and maybe create like a blind or just a natural occurring blind and be like, okay, here's where you stand if you want
That'd be cool.
your photo. You know, they don't know you're there. They have excellent vision, excellent. Like they could be from here to the parking lot, they see you and they jump in. I'm like, what the hell? You know? Or if I, look at my binoculars, that moves really big. Yeah.
How big a deal are red-eared sliders as far as impact on this population?
In terms of,
something you gotta excavate them?
yes, yeah.
How do you do that, and where do they go?
They go to
I
Donna.
go to Donna, apparently she's created a whole pond system throughout the county for the community. My permit by CDFW says to eliminate them.
Really?
Yes,
Good job.
eliminate. Okay, I don't like killing turtles, so I try to give them homes in Donna.
Right.
You know, there are some places that'll take them, some turtle people won't. Because there's so many.
Right, that's it.
Oh,
So many.
No, there's a place in Orange County, they take them, prehistoric pets, because you've heard it, and they'll be like you again, and I'll have like 50. They're like, throw them in the pond, And I think they give them out to adoption, they have like a feeding zoo thing, but we do have to euthanize them too.
So other than preserving habitat, where, and when you talked about all these threats, somewhere in there is red-eared sliders.
Yeah.
What else is there that's critical?
So preserving habitat for sure, restoring habitat, managing for the hatchlings. The adults are pretty tough. Understanding, so that's where these blank slides were coming in. I was going to show the next steps. So preserve the habitat. You know what the population is, know where they're at, know the numbers, what's the demographic, what's the recruitment. And then the next step after that is where they're nesting, so then you can start understanding what this population is doing. Now, the good news if you're using traps, it's kind of an invasive species management plan program anyway, because as you catch these things, you catch some turtles and fish and stuff, and you eliminate them. Now, eliminating the aquatic invasives, which are bullfrogs and the non-native fish, those would be the largest, that would be the largest effort to impact, and bullfrogs. Which is it can all be done. Fish is easy if you get all the electrofish, Pop, 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 pop. Especially if there's no steelhead. You can get rid of them. And bullfrogs, they also can be, it's just like, getting in shape with diet. Consistency. You just gotta keep doing it, and you will see results, Just like restoration, right? You guys doing it. You just keep going and there are these little plants and then all of a sudden you're like standing under them kind of thing. So pretty quickly too. So, but it's just got to be consistent. That's what's important. And the sliders is a big impact. I mean, those are the direct competitors.
Right.
So there's that. The fish are also a competitor with the bass. They eat. It's amazing what they can eat.
Yeah.
They eat like ducklings and it's like gruesome.
What was the picture with the fish thing? I didn't quite see the...
Oh, that was a catfish. Did that come through?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was a catfish from here. So that was... Yeah. So that was actually one of the catfish that was caught here. That were removed from the system. So there's a lot of catfish. There was a lot of catfish.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, you know, basically this creek has a pretty large exotic aquatic diversity, very low native aquatic diversity, very low. But it's here, so it can, and I think, my opinion is it can recover quickly.
Yeah.
Woo. All right, thank you, Barry. Thank you so much. Thanks to Barry and his crew back in August, they were able to identify a new location, a new population in Escondido Creek, which prompted USGS to take a second look at us. And that's why they're out here doing small stretches, a lot of water traps, just to really get a better idea of the population out here. And the reason why Barry was out here back in August is because the Conservancy has, for a very long time, we've been talking about this turtle project, and we knew that there were Southwestern Pond Turtles here. And we found a new population 2 years ago, and then Barry found another population last year. Our biggest goal is to really restore the creek. I mean, make it wonderful for all of our native species here, plants and animals alike, and really, Turtle Project, increase the population of the Southwestern Pond Turtles. If you're interested in learning more, check our website. We are fundraising, we're writing grants, we're doing everything that we can to really get this program going. We're up towards the beginning stages of it. But thank you, Barry. Wonderful talk. Thank you for your work. And we'll keep you updated on our wonderful turtle project. Become a member and donate. Yes.
How do you keep the traps from being disturbed?
Good question.
There's this two-legged invasive species.
There is.
A lot of them.
Yeah, so I tried to put them in areas that are only accessible to somebody with waders or willing to really get wet.